Hello and welcome to the Eden Kind information video about the vegan eco village we're putting together at Cwm Caredig, which is 5 miles north of Carmarthen in a place called Rudigaea. It's 36 acres of unspoilt valley with a brook running through it, ancient woodland, and we've been planting up a giant edible forest. A little bit about us then. We are an ever-evolving group of planet protectors and Edenists that have chosen to share what we have, whether that's time, skill, resources or love, and pioneer a new community based on kindness. Whether it's growing food together to become more self-sustainable or taking personal development seriously so that we can evolve as a species, we are keen to come together and find practical solutions to the climate crisis and the problems we face as communities. We practice radical honesty and believe it's time to tell the truth. Excuse me. So, the last few years we have been setting up community-supported agricultural farms and creating permaculture farms and planting up a giant edible forest garden, and it's all been veganic. It's very important to us to grow food that doesn't require animals in any way, to prove that we can be self-sustaining and healthy and increase biodiversity and work with nature in a way that means that we commune with nature rather than destroying it. And we've been doing this as a community that's largely been seasonal. So for the grow season, we've come together, whether it's passing through volunteers, regular volunteers, and we've had enough regular volunteers now that we've formed a tribe with the opportunity now to live at our flagship project by buying the adjoining farmstead that has dwellings and extra acres. We're still going to carry on in the meantime while we're trying to buy the neighbouring land and property with doing our giant edible food forest. It's going to take 2, 3, 4 years before it's ready to actually be foraged in the way we would like to in perpetuity, and that it should be free food for all. And it will be a series of paths, maybe up to 5 kilometres of nature and foraging trails. And the idea is people would join as members. It's a pay what you can or free for people that are on low income, and a little bit like when I used to go strawberry picking as a child, but you take a basket and you just pick what's seasonal as you walk round, and it could be your food for the day or it could be your food for the week. So that's the main edible food forest that we're planting up now. Every season we plant another 500 to 1,000 trees until we've pretty much filled it. We'll keep going and doing that. We've called it Eden. It doesn't have any religious connotations to us. It's just a garden, a paradise, edible forest gardens, a permaculture farm for annuals, a nature reserve with lots of foraging trails and ancient bluebell woods and new woods for forest bathing. We regularly hold up our groundations, which is where we encourage people to take off their shoes and connect with the earth, and then we often do some work together on the land and then have food and campfire, often with some singing and talking about deeper meaningful things and how we can influence change. We're planting a willow plantation at the moment, and lots of our volunteers opt to do a little bit of wild camping in beautiful unspoilt surroundings. So Edenism, also known as New Edenism, is an ethical movement based on the belief that we can all live together in harmony with nature and each other regardless of race, gender, age, ability or species. The movement aims to encourage kindness in all our choices, from how we live to what we eat, how we treat each other and how we organise society. Supporters of the movement believe that by fostering more empathic choices, we can evolve into a more enlightened species that will save the planet and its inhabitants from mass extinction. So this is an act for us of campaigning to create a self-sustaining environment where people can live together with nature and each other, and it not to be based on religion. That's actually part of Edenism, is that spirituality and religion are encouraged to be personal endeavours where you're not all forced to believe the same thing. If you want to know a little bit more about it, please visit www.newedenism.org. We will also put a link at the bottom of the video. So, the core principles for the Eco Village that we're putting together are, at the top, kindness. So when you're making the kindest choices, it's naturally vegan and it's naturally conservational because you want to do the least harm. It's actually quite similar to ahimsa in Buddhist beliefs. And also we believe in radical honesty, of saying it as it is with kindness to encourage self-awareness and accountability. We're altruistic in nature and we're really focused on self-sustainability. So if you're choosing kindness, it has to be vegan. So it has to be vegan for the animals, for your health, for the planet, to fight carnism and to evolve. Oops. So for the animals. The difficulty with vegans mixing with non-vegans is that there's this idea with non-vegans that we should all respect each other's choices. But the difficulty for vegans is that for a lot of us, we're vegan because animals are considered our friends. So it's very difficult to be with people who eat our friends or who exploit our friends, who harm our friends. For us, integrity means making a choice that's more important than taste buds. And for vegetarians, you have to know that the dairy industry is the meat industry. So although you may have given up eating meat, you are still supporting the industry and you are still supporting something that harms our friends. For us, if he or she has a face and feels emotions, he or she is not food. Because choosing kindness means being kind to all species and not just pets. And because eating corpses could be reducing our empathy. This is something that we will discuss in one of our deeper meaningfuls, I'm sure, at some time. So vegan for your health, because plant-based whole food is good for your body and mind, because meat is proven to be carcinogenic, and because I don't want to eat whatever antibiotics or growth hormones they're putting into the animals, and because my body deserves good vibration food, not to consume death and torture. And lastly, because breast milk is for babies, calf milk is not meant for human consumption. Vegan for the planet, because animal agriculture is a leading cause of global warming, and because cow slurry is responsible for vast dead zones in the oceans as it gets into our rivers and into the seas, because deforestation for animal feed crops is destroying wildlife natural habitats, because grazing land needs to be rewilded and reforested to tackle carbon emissions, and because plant-based food has a vastly lower carbon footprint and water use than meat and dairy. So we want to use the land not for grazing. We want to show people that you don't have to have this land just for grazing sheep or cattle. It can actually be used for growing food in ways that vitalise the earth and improve the quality and the nutrition of the soil. Grazing days should be over now. Vegan to fight carnism. So a lot of us believe that carnism is an addiction, and it's time to take steps to increase our empathy, not diminish it. And there could be a real link between eating meat and having a less kind attitude towards the choices you make. We were never meant to eat meat and dairy 3 times a day. Something's gone very wrong. So we're challenging people to give up meat and dairy and go vegan just for a month and then watch the videos and see how you feel about the choices you make. Vegan to evolve, because when we start considering the consequences of our action and choosing what causes the least harm, we start to evolve as a species. Because when we stop consuming death and torture, we increase our capacity for kindness through increased empathy and understanding. It's one of the reasons why it's important for us to have a sanctuary place to go where other people understand the difficulty there is in trying to operate in the general public and the rat race, especially as most of us are empaths and INF personality types. So mostly at the moment we're introverted, gentle people trying to choose a different way to live. We're setting up an eco hub at the moment in Landesill, and we'll have office space. There's the chance of a retail cooperative. We'd like to offer apprenticeships and support businesses trying to set up rural enterprises. We were doing this before the possibility of buying the farmstead next door. So now there's the possibility of all this extra land and opportunities for rural enterprise. We're really keen to get people to come and be involved in a business cooperative where businesses lend themselves to working together. So for example, someone may want to grow lots of cabbages, carrots and onions, and another person may want to make coleslaw and kimchi for their money. So there's ways that businesses can work together, and we're looking for people that are very keen to use the land in a way that's agroecological. This is a little sketch I did of part of the gardens that we're calling Eden. We're going to be digging that pond that you can see there. I'd quite like to have a locally crafted wrought iron little footbridge there, but we'll see. That's actually requiring money we don't have at the moment. But the barn you can see in there is almost completely built now. This is just a drawing of what I imagine the central community land trust land to be, which would be a community farm with camping, a barn that would have facilities like showers, gym, workshops, meeting space, a kitchen, and then there's little curtilage plots I've kind of suggested there. I will have this map up on the wall for anyone that comes to visit. In fact, most of the paperwork for this will be available for people to look at when they visit. This is just a planting zone. Most of the riverside is a flood zone, so we can't be thinking about putting any cute little cabins or anything on there, but it's fantastic for growing, and if it were ever to flood, it would be a flash flood. And we're also planning to do a little bit of work with drainage and directing water towards the stream so that we can not lose raised beds and things that we don't want to necessarily get flood damaged. So, to buy next door, there's a few ways we can go about doing this. The first way and the most simple way is a straightforward land split. So co-buying, with each co-buyer owning their part freehold. It sounds like it should be simple to do that, but actually to co-buying with other people is quite difficult with solicitors, and multiple buyers are often not something that's appealing to a vendor, because if someone drops out, then it can make the whole thing fall through. So the other way is co-buying with each buyer owning the whole and then owning leases for their home and plot as part of an MHOS, which stands for Mutual Home Ownership Society, or Eden-kind buy-in. The Eden-kind model and the MHOS model are not mutually exclusive. The two can coexist, and I will come back to talking about the MHOS and Eden-kind later. The most simple way would be for either Eden-kind or one person to buy it with loans from everybody else that wants to buy in, and then instead of repaying those loans with money, they get given the property or the land lease and co-ownership of the whole that's been pre-agreed. So lease value could equal the value of the loan. But for anyone that's got a bit of extra money to put in, we are offering 3% interest, so that as soon as we've completed and we're able to give the money back, there's 3% on the time period, which works out, I think, on 100,000, £250 a month. On 200,000, that's £500 a month. So if anyone's got to spare 200,000, we'll give you £500 a month to lend it to us for probably between 3 and 6 months to help get us going. So if you're sitting here listening to this and you've got that kind of money sitting around, we would very much welcome the chance to get this project up and running and invite people that don't necessarily have the money immediately. So co-buying with freehold land, I've written down the pros and cons for this. Multiple buyers is tricky with solicitors. It's dependent on people not dropping out at the last minute. And even with covenants, it would be hard to ensure vegan ethics continue with a resale. And I think that's the main one for us. That means that we would rather not be selling off freehold plots. Of course, it's easier to sell a freehold if moving on, but we're planning to create a buyback scheme to cover this. And even if you did buy a freehold part, there would still be shared areas like track and parking with communal cost there. So I'm going to talk about the MHOS shared freehold model. So what we would like to offer is equal ownership with no hierarchy, control over the lease clauses. We decide as a group together what's going to go in those clauses, that it stays affordable in perpetuity. We don't want to be appealing to property developers who think they can buy in and then sell at market value. It's about questioning the system and coming up with something that is more community spirited. We'll offer a buyback scheme for anyone that changes their mind. And also we've got some really fantastic business plan ideas that would cover potential service charges, so that even though it's owning the whole with leases that normally in those situations would come with service charges, we can do options to help run small rural enterprises and perhaps a small campsite that would cover all the costs. We want to encourage certain rural enterprises, so and protect those businesses by making sure there's a business model that means you don't suddenly get all willow plantation growers trying to offer willow weaving at the same time or competing with each other. We want to support each other's businesses rather than compete. And then also with the shared freehold model, if we manage to attract enough investment, that means there's money left in the kitty after we've upgraded the electrics and separated the utilities, that kind of thing, then we can offer grants for refurbishment, in particular for the houses where the EPC rating is currently at E. So to get it at least 2 bars up on that scale, we will be offering assistance for things like replacing windows and putting in electric eco heating rather than sticking with the oil that's there. But this all depends on us having a full sale of all the available properties, conversions and curtilage plots. So I'm going to suggest a community land trust on part of the land. So the MHOS and the share freehold model would be free and automatic membership into the community land trust. So to talk a little bit about the legal entity we currently have, Edenkind is a company that's limited by guarantee. That means it's not, the directors do not own shares. It's a non-profit organisation, so therefore the directors are not shareholders. It can work quite well with the MHOS model for the equity pot, and I would suggest for buying the adjoining small holding and just to get it bought and get it into our ownership, that we use Edenkind as the legal entity to buy the freehold. So Edenkind would then own the freehold, and then there would be plots, properties leased to individuals who can opt to co-own the whole by becoming an Edenkind director, or can just remain as a leaseholder with, of course, unlimited access to all the communal areas. So you can decide whether you want to buy in or not. When you become a leaseholder, you can also become a freeholder. It's a similar setup to blocks of flats and where there's a building split into multiple dwellings. So you have the option of a share of the freehold. So together as a community, you own the whole, but then you lease back to yourself your flat or your dwelling, and then you have autonomy over your private quarters or land. The contracts I would suggest would also be similar to business cooperative models, where we work together in our businesses and support each other's businesses, and also having experience of the contracts they issue for park homes and holiday cabins. There's quite a few interesting clauses in those about community space and service charges and how their leases work, that we could have a look at and incorporate as well. So all of this is to be decided by the group that comes together. Edenkind can offer a very straightforward, simple way through that's perhaps a little less complicated than making the MHOS, the Mutual Home Ownership Society, the leading way of defining what we're doing. I think to keep it simple, it would be good to buy the property under one person or organisation and then make the changes as soon as we all co-own it and decide how to go forward from there. So this is a map of the land. We currently own all the area except that's shaded in pink. So the property, and the blue part in the middle. So the properties in the middle, we would quite like to acquire the dairy to be added to the existing edible forest project. And so therefore the pink area would be the Mutual Home Ownership Society area. And then also we could, this area shaded in purple, we could add that. And in fact we could add more. We could add all the Edenkind area if we decided to go that route in the future. But for now, to keep it simple, we need to find a way to secure all this shaded pink area and the buildings. So this is the main farmhouse footprint, just to show you. It's currently arranged as one large farmhouse, but because both sides have a kitchen, utility, bathroom, 2 bedrooms, and their own entrances and staircases, you only have to separate them by these 2 adjoining doors. There's one on each floor. And then you've suddenly got 2 cottages. I'm going to suggest when we do the walk around that perhaps the double garage footprint could be have a first floor extension put on the top, which would be as part of permitted development, and then it could be separated off later as a separate cottage and another tiny house accommodation for somebody. We're of the opinion that it's kind of daft for people to be rattling around great big houses with a dining room and a separate lounge, and that actually if you can bring your living down to a smaller, more manageable space where if you need to go and batch cook, you've got a big kitchen somewhere else, and that if you need to do your laundry, you can go to the communal laundry, and that actually we can use the space more efficiently and not have to be heating rooms that we don't use. So this is the layout. It could easily be, I would say, 3 separate cottages there. So just to talk a little bit about how there's currently kind of 3 projects going on and how they could connect. So at the moment we are the nature reserve and the edible forest. So by buying the adjoining land we could create the MHOS site, and in the middle there could be a community land trust, and it connects all of the 3 projects together. It would mean that anyone visiting, they wouldn't know they were separate, they would just be visiting Vegan Valley, and that there'd be different things on site like the edible forest, like the permaculture farm, like the riverside picnic areas and nature trails. So for anyone coming to visit, it just is all one cohesive project, but in actual fact I think it's important to have autonomy for each project so that the groups running those different projects have the space and authority to make their own decisions. So at the moment this is just a sketch of the acreage, and there's the possibility that as well as the land that's not shaded pink or lime green, that's the MHOS area, that we could add this lime green area to become part of the MHOS, so that there's a full edible forest trail that could be community land trust or part of the MHOS. We're open to suggestions. What we would like to do is make the central bit that's over an acre with the barns community land trust with the central hub. So the Community Land Trust could contain permaculture farm, camping, workshops, food station or a little shop, showers, a licensed kitchen, a lovely big meeting space so that we can eat meals together, a library, potentially a bunkhouse, although I think if we have a yoga studio that could double up as a bunkhouse if we ever have a big event and lots of people wanting to stay, a post room and laundry. So that community land trust could be available for both projects, whether they stay separate or get merged in the long term. So the mutual home ownership society side, what defines that is that it's affordable homes that will stay affordable in perpetuity, 20% less than market value, that it's a non-hierarchical setup, so people join together and make the decisions in groups, and nobody is dictating what will happen. And despite the fact that it's co-owned, there'd be individually owned homes and rural enterprise plots of land. There'd be the option, if people wanted, to just lease only and not become a co-owner or a director or a shareholder of the whole thing. And we could still offer the rent-to-own equity share scheme. So how that works is if you don't have enough money to buy your house outright, you can pay rent, which gets converted into equity shares in the society. And as soon as the equity shares in the society reach the amount that's the value of the agreed price for your house, you then own your house. It would be as part of a communally owned enterprise. So the best way of organising that is everyone shares the freehold and then they own the leasehold for their property or land. We want it to be a vegan intentional community. I would say that on the MHOS side, it would be up to the group to decide how strict they are on that. It could be decided that non-vegans would be welcome if they respected the vegan rules, or it could be that they are just as strict as we are on the Eden side about how it needs to be vegan ethics to the core to feel like your tribe. So on the MHOS, we could offer free lifetime membership to the Community Land Trust and to the Edible Forest Gardens in Eden. So Eden would be the edible forest, a permaculture farm. There'd be two little permaculture farms, one that's open to the public and one that's behind the gate in the gated community. That also would include a willow plantation. We're planting a silver birch forest that we're calling the Enchanted Woods. Lots of nature and foraging walks. And then most of those being available for people with dogs to take their dogs for walks, but also we'd have big areas that are pet-free zones and pure conservation zones. There's the Eden Barn, which we're currently building, and this would be open to everyone on a membership basis, and of course would include anyone that was on the MHOS side. So these are just suggestions on how they meet in the middle and how they vary slightly from what we're suggesting, but we are also open for this to evolve with the people that join and go in directions that way. So if you like what you've heard and you think this could be something you want to get involved with, we're going to do a walk around and show people where they can have their tiny houses, whether it's within curtilage areas. I will do a separate talk on curtilage and plots and what's available. But for this video, it's more just to say what the whole looks like. But we do want people that want to be both within the curtilage areas and hooked up to mains and water, the same as the rest of the community in the central hub, and those that are keen to have a go off-grid living. And there are ways to do this without having permanent dwellings. We've got lots of lovely ideas, including cabins on skids and tiny home spaces. So we would urge you to come and have a look at the land and hear all our exciting ideas of how we can live alongside nature. So if this appeals to you, the first thing we need to do is identify who shares our vision. Ideally, it's all vegan and all ready to commit. So once we've identified who those people are, then the next step is to get to know each other a bit better. So a bit of tribe bonding. That could be that you return to volunteer, help us dig the pond, help us finish the tree planting. At the very least, if you live far away, it would be to join us on Zoom chats while we decide on what route forward we need to take and what legal entities and how we're going to do this. I would suggest that the time period for this would be probably within the next fortnight. We need to decide on at least the initial pioneers that can go forward, and then we would make an Ecology Building Society application. So those with equity or a regular income to present to the Ecology Building Society would become part of the mortgage application. I have to say there's no commitment to going ahead and committing to being on the mortgage if you join us for the application stage. They have made it very clear they don't expect it to be exactly the same people at the end of the process as at the beginning of the application. They understand that with communities, new communities that are forming, it's all chop and change. But they need to have a rough idea of who's involved and who is most likely to see it through to the end, which of course is us. And then anyone else, if you join in, there is no commitment to see it through. You can drop out at any stage. But for those that don't drop out and want to take it to the next level, then we need to create the legal entities or adapt what we've got already. I'm suggesting that we use the Eden kind limited by guarantee setup, but that's only because it's ready and good to go. I am perfectly happy to not offer that and to have the MHOS set up their own legal entity, and we will join in with someone else's plans if they've got a better idea. We're presenting a lot of these ideas on how to go forward because we've researched it and we're picking the easiest route, partly because we really don't want to get caught up in all the complications of a lot of the different ways of going forward. But if someone's an expert and they can help navigate us through, then we're flexible. So once we've done all that, then the final step is to commit, and when we get to the point where we can exchange contracts on the property, that you're there with your deposit or with your signed rental equity share agreement, and that we can say yes to either to the Ecology Building Society mortgage, or that we've all got the money between us and we don't need to take that money. That we commit, we exchange contracts, and then we complete. And then the work starts in doing things like upgrading the electrical systems and working out what needs to be done to get to the first level of making everything separate and livable. So I hope that that's inspired you and you want to start that bit of journey with us. For those that are still a little bit unsure about the whole mutual home ownership scheme, I'm hoping this graphic will help. So basically, if you're a resident, you own the mutual home ownership cooperative society, or if you're a resident, you own the company that owns the homes. So the residents own the organisation that owns the homes. It's like a loop. Little flowchart for you for Vegan Valley, to know if you're a good fit for us. Are you vegan? Yes. Are you looking for a vegan community? Yes. Do you have any equity or income? Yes. If you don't, we're asking people at the moment to join our waiting list. We're not saying no to you. We're just saying we need to set this thing up first, and then we'll come back to you. We're considering the people that join us in the beginning to be founder pioneers, and the people that join us once we've acquired the site and got it going are the settlers that will join us. We need both. Both are equally as important. But if you don't have equity or any income that you can prove at the moment, I'm afraid it's just waiting until we get this thing going. Next question, do you have cats? I'm afraid this is a conservation project. So unless we find we have to shift the parameters because we don't have enough investors, we are saying we'd rather not have anything that conflicts with our work to increase the wildlife, in particular birds. And for me, I'm really keen to attract ground nesting birds. So at the moment it's a no for cats, but we will revisit this if we need to. At the moment, I'm afraid you're on the waiting list if you've got cats. Are you ready to join us? This is a big one. A lot of people love what we're doing, but they're a good year away from being ready to join us. So again, if you don't mind just stepping back and waiting so that the rest of us can get this going. If you're ready to join us, then yes, hello, come and join us and see if we can make this thing happen. It's a beautiful vision, and I hope that when you come and have a look round, you will see what we can see. And that's it. So what I'd like to do now, I'm going to try and switch this to camera and say hello to you. Video. Hello. So I just wanted to put a face to the voice. I don't like being on video at all, so I suddenly will go very awkward. And Paul hates being on video, but Paul, you need to come and say hello. Hello, Paul.
Hello, I'm Paul. It's wonderful. If any of this resonates with you, then please get in touch. The information will be at the bottom.
Oh yes, I'll put the website information at the bottom. If you really want to join us, the best way to do it, rather than telephone and have us write things on scraps of paper and lose those scraps of paper, is to fill out either an investor form or a tribe seeking application form. The tribe seeking application form is quite a lot of information, but we really do need to know, and we're happy to share our own tribe seeking forms as well. We're very good at being transparent and sort of sharing everything about us, and we want to know all about you as well. So especially if you've got some fantastic ideas for permaculture and agroecology and veganic food production, that'd be great.
Yeah, exciting times.
Okay, thank you very much.